The Seattle rain fell like whispered secrets that October afternoon. Richard Chambers sat motionless on the iron bench in Emerald Gardens, his unseeing eyes fixed on nothing, his expensive suit soaked through. He didn't care anymore. The world had gone dark 18 months ago, not just his vision, but everything that mattered. His fingers traced the armrest, counting the rust spots he'd memorized. 43, always 43. It was one of the few certainties left in his dissolving life. She doesn't love you anymore. The words cut through the rain like glass, a child's voice, young, certain. Richard's head snapped toward the sound, his heart suddenly hammering against his ribs. Who said that? I did, closer now. The bench creaked as someone small sat beside him, and I'm sorry, but you needed to hear it. He turned his head, instinctively trying to see what his eyes could no longer show him. Who are you? Where did you come from? My name is Lily. I'm 9 years old, and I've been watching you and your wife for 3 months. Richard's throat tightened. His wife, Catherine. Beautiful, devoted Catherine, who held his hand through every surgery, who promised to never leave, who walked him to this garden every Tuesday and Thursday while she made her important calls. That's impossible, he whispered. You're just a child, you don't know what you're talking about. I know she talks to a man named Patrick when you can't hear, Lily said softly. I know she laughs differently with him. I know she's waiting for something, and I know you're in danger. The rain drummed harder. Richard's hands began to tremble. Last Thursday, Lily continued, her voice steady despite her age, she stood right there by the fountain. She was on the phone. She said, once the new medication takes full effect, we can move forward. The doctor confirmed the cognitive decline will look natural. Richard stopped breathing. I don't make things up, Mr. Chambers. My mom taught me that lies are poison. She died last year and now it's just me. I sleep in the shelter on 5th Street. I come here because it's quiet, and because I've seen too many people hurt other people and get away with it. Richard's mind raced. Medication, cognitive decline. The new pills Catherine had insisted he take, prescribed by a doctor he'd never met, only spoken to over the phone, the increasing fog in his thoughts. The memory lapses Catherine gently pointed out to their lawyer, their accountant, their friends. Why are you telling me this? He asked, his voice cracking. Because nobody helped my mom when she needed it. Everyone looked away. I won't look away from you. Footsteps approached, Catherine's heels clicking on wet stone. I have to go, Lily whispered. But I'll be here Thursday, same time. If you want the truth, come back, come alone. She was gone before Catherine's perfume reached him. That expensive French scent that used to mean home, but now smelled like a stranger. Darling, you're drenched. Catherine's hands touched his shoulders, warm and practiced. Let's get you home before you catch pneumonia. Richard stood slowly, using his cane more than he needed to, playing the part she expected. But his mind was screaming. Before we continue, if this story is hitting you hard, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the like icon and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You won't believe what happens next, and I need you here for every second of it. Trust me, this story is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. That night, Richard lay awake in their king-sized bed, listening to Catherine breathe beside him. Each exhale felt like a countdown. He thought about Lily, a 9-year-old homeless girl with more courage than most adults he knew. She had nothing, yet she risked approaching a stranger to deliver a warning that could shatter his world. Or save it. His fingers found the pill bottle on his nightstand. Catherine had left it there, as she did every night, with a glass of water and a handwritten note. Don't forget, my love, doctor's orders. He held the bottle, feeling its weight. Then, carefully, silently, he unscrewed the cap and poured the pills into his palm. Tomorrow, he would find someone to analyze them. Tonight, he would pretend to sleep. Pretend not to notice when Catherine slipped out of bed at 2 a.m. to whisper into her phone in the hallway. Yes, Patrick, another week, maybe two. He's getting worse, more confused. The lawyer is ready. Once I have medical documentation of his incompetence, everything transfers to me. The company, the assets, everything. We've waited long enough. Richard's eyes remained closed, but tears slid down his temples, soaking into the $1,000 pillowcase. The woman he'd built an empire for. The woman who'd stood at the altar 12 years ago and promised forever. The woman now planning his destruction with the precision of a corporate takeover. He'd been blind long before the accident that took his sight. But now, because of a 9-year-old girl with nothing to lose and everything to teach him, he could finally see. Thursday arrived wrapped in fog. Richard insisted on walking to the garden alone, using the route he'd memorized. Catherine protested, her concern so perfectly performed it almost convinced him. "Richard, you nearly fell last week. Let me come with you." "I need to do this myself," he said firmly. "I'm not helpless, Catherine." Her smile felt like a knife against his neck. "Of course not, darling. I'll pick you up in an hour." He waited until her car disappeared before changing direction, taking the longer path that led to the eastern entrance of Emerald Gardens. His cane tapped against concrete, his other hand counting steps, his heart pounding with each one. Lily was already there. "You came," she said, relief clear in her voice. "I had to," he sat heavily. "I need to know everything." For the next 40 minutes, Lily told him what she'd observed. The meetings between Catherine and a man named Patrick Voss, a corporate attorney specializing in contested estates. The consultations with a neurologist who'd never examined Richard in person. The careful documentation Catherine kept, recording every moment Richard seemed confused or disoriented. "She's building a case," Lily explained, "making it look like you can't take care of yourself or your business. Once she has enough evidence, she'll have you declared incompetent. Then she gets everything." Richard's jaw clenched. "How do you know all this?" "I'm invisible," Lily said simply. "People don't watch what they say around homeless kids. We're like furniture. I heard them talking in the coffee shop near the shelter. Patrick was showing her documents. She was laughing about how easy you'd made it." "Easy." "You trusted her. That's what she said." "He trusted me completely. This will be over before he even realizes what's happening." Richard felt something crack inside his chest. Not his heart breaking that had already happened. This was something else, something colder, harder. "Anger." "Lily," he said slowly, "would you be willing to testify to what you've seen and heard?" Silence, then quietly, "Would anyone believe a homeless kid?" "I would, and I know people who would listen. But I need your help, I need proof." "I can get proof," Lily said. "Patrick meets Catherine every Wednesday at the Harborview Cafe. I can record them. I have a phone, it's old, but it works." Richard reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Take this. It's $5,000 in cash. Get yourself somewhere safe to stay, buy whatever you need, and get a better phone, one with a good recording feature." "I can't take your money." "Yes, you can. You're saving my life. Let me help save yours." Lily's small hand closed around the envelope. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," Richard said, his voice breaking. "Thank you. You're the only person in my world who's told me the truth." They sat together as the fog thickened, an unlikely alliance forming in the silence. A blind billionaire and a homeless child, both abandoned by the people who should have protected them, both now fighting for something precious, dignity. Catherine arrived exactly 1 hour later, her voice bright and cheerful. "Ready, darling." Richard stood, letting her take his arm. "Yes, let's go home." But it wasn't home anymore. It was a battlefield. And the war had just begun. 3 weeks later, Richard sat in his attorney's office, surrounded by people he'd handpicked for loyalty and discretion. His personal lawyer, David Chen, a private investigator named Sarah Martinez, a forensic accountant, And sitting quietly in the corner, wearing new clothes but still radiating wariness, was Lily. "Let's review what we have," David said, spreading documents across the conference table. Sarah spoke first. "The pills. Laboratory analysis shows they contain a mixture of sedatives and a cognitive inhibitor typically used for severe dementia patients. Prescribed by Dr. Raymond Foster, who, interestingly, graduated from a medical school in the Caribbean that was shut down for fraudulent accreditation 5 years ago." "Foster doesn't exist," Richard said flatly. "He exists," Sarah corrected, "but he's not licensed to practice in Washington or anywhere in the United States. Catherine paid him $50,000 to create a prescription history and medical records documenting your supposed mental decline." The forensic accountant slid forward a thick binder. "Mrs. Chambers has been systematically transferring funds into offshore accounts under shell companies. Over the past year, she's moved approximately $40 million. She's also taken out life insurance policies on you totaling $20 million, all purchased within the last 6 months." Richard's hands clenched. "Life insurance? The kind that pays double for accidental death," the accountant added quietly. David cleared his throat. "And then we have the recordings Lily obtained." He pressed play on a small device. Catherine's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "The medication is working perfectly. He's so confused now he can't remember conversations from an hour ago. Dr. Foster will testify that Richard's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Once we have the competency hearing, I'll have full control. And if he becomes difficult, well, accidents happen, especially to blind men." Patrick's voice responded. "You're certain the estate planning is airtight?" "Completely. I'm the sole beneficiary. His son from his first marriage gets nothing. Richard changed his will last year, right after I suggested it. Poor confused man, so easy to manipulate." Lily's face had gone pale. Richard reached out, finding her hand, squeezing it gently. "There's more," Sarah said. "We discovered Patrick Voss and Catherine have been involved romantically for over 2 years. They met at a legal conference. Text messages between them suggest this plan began shortly after Richard's accident. They saw an opportunity." Richard leaned back in his chair, his sightless eyes pointed at the ceiling. "What are my options?" "We go to the police," David said. "This is attempted fraud, conspiracy, possibly attempted murder. We have enough evidence to—" "No," Richard interrupted, "not yet." Everyone fell silent. "I want her to show her hand completely," Richard continued, his voice cold and controlled. "I want her to walk into that courtroom, look me in the eyes, even though I can't see her, and try to destroy me in front of witnesses. Then we destroy her." David hesitated. "Richard, that's dangerous, if she's willing to." "I'll be protected. Sarah will have people watching me 24/7, but I need this. I need to see who she really is when she thinks she's won." Lily spoke for the first time. "She'll show you. Bad people always celebrate too early." Richard smiled at the wisdom in those young words. "Exactly." The competency hearing was scheduled for November 18th. Catherine played her part beautifully, the devoted wife, exhausted from caring for her declining husband, heartbroken but realistic about his condition. She sat in the courtroom wearing a navy dress, tissues clutched in her hand, Patrick Voss beside her as family counsel. Across the aisle, Richard sat with David, looking every bit the confused, frail man Catherine had described. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman named Helen Ortiz, reviewed the medical documents Catherine had submitted. "Mrs. Chambers," Judge Ortiz began, "you're asking this court to declare your husband mentally incompetent and grant you full conservatorship over his person and estate. These are serious measures." "I understand, Your Honor," Catherine said, her voice trembling perfectly. "But Richard can't care for himself anymore. He forgets to eat. He doesn't recognize friends. Yesterday, he couldn't remember our anniversary. It breaks my heart, but I can't watch him deteriorate without help." "Mr. Chambers," the judge turned to Richard, "do you understand why you're here?" Richard lifted his head. "Yes, Your Honor, my wife believes I'm losing my mind." "Are you?" A pause, then Richard smiled. "No, Your Honor, I'm not. In fact, my mind has never been clearer." Catherine's face twitched just for a second. "Your Honor," David stood, "we'd like to present evidence that contradicts Mrs. Chambers' petition. Evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted financial exploitation." The courtroom went still. For the next 2 hours, David methodically dismantled Catherine's case. The fake doctor, the falsified medical records, the offshore accounts, the life insurance policies, and finally the recordings. When Catherine's voice played through the courtroom speakers, cold, calculating, discussing Richard's accidental death, her face drained of all color. "That recording was illegally obtained," Patrick Voss shouted, jumping to his feet. "It was obtained by a private citizen in a public place where there was no expectation of privacy," David countered smoothly. "Completely legal under Washington state law." Judge Ortiz's expression had turned to stone. "Mrs. Chambers, do you care to explain?" Catherine's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "This is a misunderstanding. Those recordings are taken out of context." "Context?" Richard stood, his voice cutting through her excuses like a blade. "What context makes it acceptable to poison your husband, to plan his death, to steal everything he built?" Tears, real ones this time, began streaming down Catherine's face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage at being caught. "You were supposed to be blind," she screamed. "Too stupid and helpless to see what was happening. I gave you the best years of my life, and what did I get? A husband who worked more than he loved me. You owed me this." The courtroom erupted. Judge Ortiz's gavel cracked like thunder. "Order, Mrs. Chambers, sit down." But Catherine wasn't finished. She turned to Richard, her beautiful face twisted with hatred. "You think you've won? You're still blind. You're still pathetic. You'll always need someone, and it will never be me." Richard's voice, when it came, was quiet but filled with steel. "You're right, Catherine. I am blind, but I can see you perfectly now, and I see exactly what you are." Judge Ortiz's ruling was swift and decisive. The competency petition was denied. Catherine was ordered to repay all transferred funds immediately. Criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy would be filed. Patrick Voss was facing disbarment. As the bailiff led Catherine from the courtroom, still screaming, Richard felt a small hand slip into his. "You did it," Lily whispered. "We did it," he corrected. And if you're still watching, if this story moved you, made you angry, made you believe in justice again, I need you to do something right now. Subscribe to this channel, hit that like button so hard your screen cracks, and comment below, "Justice served." Because stories like this need to be heard. Truth needs to be louder than lies, and I'll be here bringing you more stories that matter. Don't disappear on me now. 6 months later, Richard stood in the main conference room of Chambers Tech Industries, his company, addressing his board of directors. Beside him, carrying a folder of documents, was his new executive assistant. Lily, now 10 years old, wore a professional dress and had her hair pulled back neatly. She'd been legally adopted by Richard 3 months earlier. She attended a prestigious private school, had a trust fund that would see her through college, and had discovered a remarkable talent for business analysis. "The restructuring is complete," Richard announced to the board. "Our profits are up 18%. Our reputation has been fully restored. And I'm pleased to introduce our newest scholarship program, the Second Chances Initiative, which will provide full support, housing, education, and job training to homeless youth in Seattle." Applause filled the room. After the meeting, Richard and Lily walked through the building together, her hand guiding his elbow as they navigated the hallways he'd once known by sight. "Dad," Lily said quietly, She'd started calling him that last month. Yes. Do you ever miss her, even a little? Richard considered the question. I miss who I thought she was, but that person never existed. What I don't miss is the blindness, not the kind that took my eyes, but the kind that stopped me from seeing the truth. They reached his office. Lily guided him to his desk chair, then sat across from him. I have something for you, she said. Oh. Close your eyes. Richard smiled. Lily, I'm all ready. Just do it. He closed his useless eyes, heard her move around the desk, felt her press something into his hands. Open them. He did, and though he still saw nothing, Lily described what he held, a framed photograph of the two of them, taken the day the adoption was finalized. Both smiling, both free. The inscription says, "Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we never see coming," Lily read softly. Richard's throat tightened. He pulled her into a hug, this fierce, brilliant child who'd had every reason to look away from his suffering, but chose instead to step into the darkness with him. Thank you, he whispered into her hair, for everything. Thank you for believing me when nobody else would have, she replied. They sat together in comfortable silence, the Seattle rain tapping against the windows, a reminder of that October day when a 9-year-old girl spoke truth into the void and changed everything. Richard had lost his sight, his wife, and nearly his fortune. But he'd gained something infinitely more valuable, a daughter, integrity, and the knowledge that real vision has nothing to do with eyes and everything to do with the courage to see truth, even when it destroys the illusions you've built your life upon. Catherine was serving a 6-year sentence for fraud and conspiracy. Patrick Voss lost his license and faced criminal charges. Dr. Raymond Foster was arrested attempting to flee the country. And Richard, he rebuilt his life, brick by brick, truth by truth, with a remarkable little girl by his side who taught him that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most powerful messages. The moral echoed through every decision he made afterward. Blindness isn't about what your eyes can't see. It's about what your heart refuses to acknowledge. And the most dangerous poison isn't in a pill. It's in the trust you give to people who have already decided you're worth more dead than alive. But there's another lesson, one Lily taught him on that foggy October afternoon. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it is scraped knees and honest eyes and a courage that shames every adult in the room. Sometimes it's a 9-year-old girl who refuses to look away when everyone else does. And that, more than any fortune or company or legal victory, is what saved Richard Chambers' life. The end. If this story touched your soul, if it made you think twice about who you trust and what you value, don't just scroll away. Subscribe right now, like this video, comment with your biggest takeaway, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, because truth matters, justice matters, and your support helps me bring you more stories that remind us all what really counts. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your eyes open, not just to see, but to truly witness the truth around you.